Hi, I'm Laura Beck, Learning and Development Guide with the Eden Alternative, and I have the pleasure of hanging out with my colleague Denise Hyde, who is a member of our team as well as community builder. But what you may not know about Denise, if you're acquainted with her, is that she is a registered pharmacist and she is also a doctor of pharmacy. And the reason why that's relevant to our conversation today is that we're going to talk a little bit about uh, the benefits and the process of removing the med cart from long-term care communities. This is sort of a pre-conversation, if you will, for a two-part webinar series that we're going to be offering on April 24th and May 1st, just a few weeks away, called Home is Where the Med Cart Isn't. And it will be featuring a panel of clinicians and experts on the topic that will actually offer some different insights and perspectives on why this is a beneficial change to make. And so, Denise, along those lines, I have a couple of questions for you, just to get people acquainted with why they should bother thinking about joining us on the 24th. First of all, why is removing the med cart relevant to practicing person-directed care?
I would say first because a med cart is a very institutional thing. It's an institutional trapping is what we would call it. Because I don't know about you, but I don't have a med cart rolling around my house loaded up with the medications that my husband and I take. It's just not normal. You wouldn't see that in anybody's home. So to create home for the elders and have it be really directed by the elders, the med cart doesn't make sense. So that would be my first thing. The second thing about how it's relevant is that I find it's one of those pebbles you can drop in the pond. So if you go into the idea that we're going to get rid of the med carts, that opens up this conversation where you start thinking, okay, so now we need to change up our routine because now we're going room to room to give the elders their meds. Well, it would make sense to do that when they're awake. And so what if we went to natural awakening? So that as we were getting them up and going in the morning, we would give them their meds. It's in their room. It makes sense. It's like we would do it at home, right? And so now if we're going to have natural awakening, now we got to look at our meal service. It doesn't make sense to have breakfast from this time to this time in a really confined space if people are going to just awaken at their own natural pace. And then you look at it and go, okay, well, maybe we don't need the housekeepers keeping house and running the vacuums and mopping the floors at these times. And maybe the laundry shouldn't be delivered during these times. And maybe the landscaper shouldn't be mowing during these times. And so now we start touching a lot of systems and processes, and we really can make deep change just from the one idea that we're going to get rid of the med cart.
You know, that's really amazing to me. It's just a great example of how connected all systems are. And that sometimes making one change can really set you up to be successful with others. So I love that you shared that example. And along those lines, I'm kind of curious, is there a benefit to removing the med cart that might surprise people that maybe they wouldn't have thought about? You obviously just shared one, but what else would you add to that?
So the other thing that I've heard people talk about, or just one of the homes that I knew got rid of the med carts, they said what was really interesting was in the process of trying to figure out how we move the meds out of the med cart and into the elders' rooms, they actually stimulated that conversation of why is this person on so many medications? Do they really need all these medications? And overall, they were able to reduce overall medication use by 30%. Just from having the conversation of how do we move the meds out of the med cart into the elders' room is like perfect. Optimizing medication use, that's what we're all about. It was awesome. And then the other thing that they told me was that once the med cart was gone, it wasn't rolling up and down the hallways all day long and sitting outside the dining room and all the places that we put it, they found that there was less requests from the elders for as needed medications as well as overall getting medications and treatments and I need to see the doctor stuff suddenly kind of like dissolved away because that institutional trapping was not in their face all day long reminding them that, hey, sick people live here.
It is so interesting and powerful, the messages we send with the choices we make, right? And sometimes we don't tune into that chicken or the egg process. And to me, that's a really super example of that. Awesome. Well, since, you're a clinician, right? And I'm guessing that when people hear about removing the med cart, they don't make the connection to clinical benefits of making that choice. Obviously, reducing unnecessary medications is an excellent example of that, but is there anything else from a clinical perspective that might surprise folks?
So I'm not going to give it all away, but I would say one of the things that I've heard said was that obviously medication errors go down because you're in just that elder's room. You're only looking at just that elder's meds. You don't have a bunch of competing boxes where things might have been thrown into the wrong hole, you know, when somebody else got their meds and that kind of stuff. So there's less chance of a med error, which is huge. And most people would tell you, well, that's not a big deal because we don't have a high med error rate. And I would say, yeah, I don't know that you're measuring your med errors right. Because I think we actually have more med errors. I think there's a lot of near misses that don't get reported, but that's a whole nother conversation. But there is overall less med errors because like only that elder's meds are in that cabinet. So it makes it a whole lot easier. The other thing I think can happen if we do it right is it slows us down. To, like I said, if we're going to put the meds in the elder's room, then let's look at natural awakening, which means we can slow down our morning road rage. Hooray. And that means that if I'm assisting the elder with the meds, we can sit down and have a conversation about what medication they're given. I can slow my pace down and I actually can have some counseling and also deepen my relationship with the elder. But now I've got an informed participant in their own care. They're more of a care partner with me and I'm a care partner with them than the idea that I'm just here to do a task, drink, eat your meds, eat this applesauce, whatever, so I can get on and get to the next one. And I think that is so, so, so valuable. There's so much you can observe and learn if we could just slow it all down and really focus in on that individual and what they're taking and really have a good, meaningful conversation.
Perfect. Again, great insights. You know, could you say just a little bit about the panel? You know, you're going to be part of this panel for this 2-part webinar series, so we'll be hearing more from you, which is great. Couple comments about the folks, the kind of people who will be sharing the teaching with you on the webinar series?
Yes. So 2 of the panelists, well, I should say 3 of the panelists, because there's a pair of people from one community. And so there's 2 communities that have gone to meds in the elders room. One was through a remodel. The other was they just built the space and actually went into that direction. And so they'll try to tell both the good sides and the hiccups and the things that they messed up and they had to fix later. And it's not a perfect journey, but they have each of them has a really good story. And then Steve Reinecke from Proximity is going to be speaking as well. And they're a company that actually custom builds medication cabinets. And he has a lot of stories from hospital as well as assisted living and long-term care implementation of med cabinets. So he has perspectives from a lot of different people that have gone down this journey. And again, what works and what doesn't work and what they thought about and what they didn't think about. So the first one's kind of like everybody telling their story on April 21st, 4th. And then on May 1st, I get my dates right, on May 1st, we're going to kind of go through the how-tos. So what are the things you need to think through and work through if this is a journey you want to take?
Perfect. Thank you so much. Appreciate the conversation. And we hope that all of you will join us starting April 24th for Home is Where the Med Card Isn't.